So today we're going to cover three things every HCM project needs to address before they can buy with confidence. I'm going to be real quick on here because we got a bit of a delayed start, and then I'm going to turn it over to Shane Watson to do two portions of this presentation, and then Chris for one portion, the RFP part. So I'm going to go through this a little quick and talk about what we're going to do. First, we're going to understand the true cost of total cost of ownership when it comes to HR software. Um, and here's some quick notes. You guys can read it faster than I can say it out loud, so I'll let you just take a look there. You can see that it's definitely an issue. It's not being done properly, and we think we can help with that. The second thing we're going to talk about is how to build a better RFP and some details around that. Again, around the RFP, it's often the one thing I took from this is often demos take over the RFP, so people get stuck on looks instead of function. And then the third part of the section, which might be the second part, depending how it goes, is given factual data to drive insight from vendor selection. And here's some quick notes on typically what people do or use in accessing that type of data. Now, or to make those decisions. So I'm going to make Shane a co-host, and so he can be ready to get his stuff up. But you can see here my contact information, CEO Whitmarsh Consulting Group, and Shane's contact information, President and CEO of Strategic Business Solutions. Wherever you're watching this video, just go to the bottom. You'll see this contact information, so we can help you out there. And Shane, did you want to get into the first
Yep,
part then?
absolutely. I'll take it from here. Just wanted to come on camera real quick just to say hello, introduce myself. I'm Shane Watson, President and CEO of Strategic Business Solutions. Also have Chris Howe, one of our folks on the call today. He's our senior software engineer. He'll be talking about our RFP tool. So I'll switch off video. Hopefully you can still hear me, and then I will go ahead and share so that I can get into the Clearview Work Suite, and we'll talk about that. Sound good?
Sounds great. We have your
So
dashboard.
I think for Dave's queue up notes, I'll probably do the total cost of ownership, how to build an ROI, and how to use the data to make market decisions, probably all on my part. And then I'll turn it over to Chris to address RFP, since the three that I just mentioned are kind of in this same box, and the RFP is a little bit separate. What we are looking at here, just to educate everyone, this is our Clearview Work Suite. So it's our application that we use to help our customers, whether they be service providers, consultants, or just people that are looking to make a change in their HCM deck. We've been doing this for 25 years. We've probably done over 20,000 of these studies, which gives us some very good data. And my personal opinion is that this is probably the gold standard for anyone who is looking at making a change to their HCM deck, whether it be changing the HR system, the payroll system, benefits, or all of it. This is a very good consultative approach to help understand and help you define what you're spending today, and then build off of that structure what your ROI and return on investment and business case might be against that total cost. So without further ado, I will jump into this and give a demo. I actually have a company set up called SBSI All Products Demo Company that I use for just this purpose. Couple of things to kind of explain about what you're seeing. Everything gets set up at the company level. So SBSI All Product Demo Company is the company. This could be, Target, Hewlett Packard, whatever. But that's kind of the company, and then everything we do for that organization is kind of down here in these different tabs. And obviously, we have the ability to do a lot of things. But we're going to be talking today about detailed TCO studies and how to kind of build your total cost. So I'm going to dive into this and just kind of talk about this dashboard for a minute. And I think I should have done this beforehand, David, but I can do it really quickly while we're talking. And what I'm doing is just activating different surveys. So it's literally this easy to activate surveys in the system and get them all up and running. I turned a few off because we were focusing on a specific area. But the way that SBSI has built this tool, we can go into your human capital management area. You'll notice there's two tabs here in the system. One is for finance and one is for HCM. We've built our application to be able to kind of position folks that are looking at an ERP that might go across the entire organization or just the HCM space. Today, we're going to focus on this, so I won't spend much time here, but I just want to let everybody know it's here if you're doing an ERP evaluation. We call these pillars. So we've kind of taken the HCM space, human capital management, and tried to say, okay, if we walk in your door and we have to align ourselves and look at your costs, what's the best way to do that makes sense? The way that we kind of boiled that down in the end is we have a section on payroll, section on time and labor, HR administration, benefits administration, recruiting and onboarding, comp, learning and performance. This seems to make sense for us. Obviously, things like employee satisfaction and all that are in here, so there's some lower categories that kind of get embedded into these large ones, but this helps us very easily structure teams within the organizations to get the folks we need to complete these surveys. So with that as kind of an introduction of the different pillars and everything, I'm now going to go over to the reporting hub, and I'm actually going to open up a total cost of ownership study that we present to executives once we're finished. What this report is telling you is that they are spending $30,241,902 across these areas with a green check mark. And again, I've got the finance piece turned off. I probably ought to just deactivate that tab, so the only thing we're seeing are these green check box. But we make this visual very much on purpose. And we could go into an organization and just do a payroll study. We could go in and just do a recruiting study. We could do a study that combines payroll, time, HR, and benefits in a core and turn the rest of these off. These can be deployed in any combination. I would say most of the time we do them all because they interrelate and they're all integrated. It makes sense to kind of understand the total cost of all of it, but you can do it by individual area. So let's talk a minute about data structure. I'm going to kind of go to the middle of my page here where it says elements of HCM cost. Again, we've done this for 20 years. We have a very good methodology that PwC helped us build about 2004. And then we have taken that methodology and improved it and added to it, made it better over the time that we've had it. So if you think about, okay, somebody's going to come in and do a total cost of ownership study for me, probably the first thing that jumps to your mind is, well, what is that going to include? What's the recipe for that activity? So let's talk about that just for a minute, because I think it kind of drives everything we do within the system. So I've got three areas here that I want to talk about. One is labor, one is non-labor, and we've got a category called other. So as we do these studies, our survey base is helping us collect information about different labor buckets that happen. The first one, as I go over these, you'll notice that they have a hover over glossary of terms that we'll just review real quickly. So what processing labor would be is your payroll team, your benefits team, your HR team, um, comp team, anybody that's kind of working in that HCM deck, but it's not always that clean. So we could, for example, have a couple guys from finance that come over at the end of the year to do the W-2s and help us do year-end close. We could have some people out in satellite locations that do payroll activities. So we want to think about it in terms of not just the department, but who is involved in delivering, front to end services in that area. So gross to net payroll, full service benefits, everything that has to do with HR, what people are involved in it. The second bucket of labor would be the maintenance labor. So, if you're outsourced to a provider, you might not have a lot of folks internally that are doing things. If you're premise based, you probably have a handful of HRIS folks or IT people that are doing help desk functions or writing custom reports or doing integration to other products, whatever it might be. But we want to understand what that labor burden and cost is. Third bucket is, I'm going to say it's a focus on managers and employees who are the customers of what we do in HCM. So, we're paying employees and managers. We're doing HR for employees and managers. We're asking managers to interface with our different systems to approve time, do performance appraisals, audit time, do scheduling, do HR compliance reporting, all kinds of things there. So we're trying to measure real simply how badly are we burdening our managers with HR administrivia that could prevent them from selling product or doing better customer service or, more than likely the things we're paying them to do. Middle of the page, the non-labor items. Obviously, if we have people working in buildings, we're going to have facility related expenses like lease and utilities and furniture and printers and toner and all kinds of things that are involved there. We also have corporate overhead functions like legal and operations and HR itself, who don't really generate a lot of revenue for the organization, but they're a cost and necessary to run the organization. So we want to kind of understand those costs, and that's where we collect that. This bucket is the system maintenance non-labor. I like to describe this as all of the system costs, so servers, third-party hosters, outsourcing fees, license fees that we pay, disaster recovery and backup, if I didn't mention that. What else? AS400, mainframe CPU time that we might have in here. There's a lot of things that, require us to have in place there to support the system. So it's everything that is necessary to buy whatever we have. Outsourcing fees is where we're capturing partners. So let's talk about that. You could have some temporary labor in some areas, some consultants that work. And then you have all these different groups that you work with to get things done. So for payroll, I might be on ADP for payroll, but I have some company that does pay cards for me. Or I might be on UKG for payroll, but I pay ADP to do taxes and garnishments and W-2s. Recruiting, 401k or recruiting has background checks, drug screens, a lot of different, web-based boards like LinkedIn and things that we're spending there. Benefits has a slew of these, from 401k administrators to Cobra to brokers to, you name it. So we've got a very guided structure where we get all those costs here. And then risk and opportunity is kind of the area where, as we're doing this study, we're kind of doing an underlying evaluation on your error rates. What are low hanging fruits that we can fix right away? What problems do we have with integration? How well are we syncing up with, our benefits and HR and payroll? What rules based things are in there that drive how data works? A variety of things there that need to be covered. And so we pull all that together in that area of the reporting. So that should give you a fairly high level, these are the different pillars that we can go after. And once we get into a pillar, this is the structure of the data that we're collecting. when it comes out onto the report, it kind of looks like this. So, these are all those areas that are now showing with data in them. So if I want to look at, for example, processing labor, everything with a blue number can be hyperlinked and drilled into. So these are all of the, payroll activities that are happening. These are the time and labor. Here's the HR, here's benefits. And, if I just want to open up payroll and say, I'm spending $863,000 in labor to do what I do to pay people. I can now go down and click data entry, which is costing me, 81,000 of those dollars. I've got 3 payroll analysts that spend 15% of their time based on their salary and a 17% load. This is the cost of that activity for those 3 people, these 2 analysts and this specialist. So at the end of the day, we don't only know this number, which is cost, we actually know who's doing the activity, how much time they're spending, and based on their salary, what the actual cost is with the load. So it's very, very accurate. Uh, I can look at any of these. This would be the IT piece. So it's showing me my corporate overhead, my disaster recovery, facility costs, IT budget, hardware maintenance, what I'm paying Oracle today in licensing. These are all of the activities that are being done by, my IT people. So when it lines out in here, very concrete, detailed information. Even to the field labor, I can look in here and see that, distributing checks is costing this company almost $1 million. And if I click that formula, managers are spending an hour a week or per pay period distributing checks. There's 290 managers that do it. They do it 52 weeks. They have a 53 or dollar rate of pay on average and a 17% load. So, all these numbers are backed up. I can see exactly what's in there. Executives love it. Finance people love it because they can see exactly where things are. This is now breaking it down by HCM pillar. So we can see how that 30 million is broken up across payroll time, HR, benefits, et cetera. Then the last thing that we do with this benchmark report, remember at the outset, I mentioned that we'd done probably 20,000 of these studies. So that gives us the ability to do some benchmarking. We can look at companies with comparable size. We can look at companies that are in the same industry, and we can look at companies that are using the same platform to do a variety of these different things. So if I just look at payroll, I got a $4 million cost. I've got 8,200 employees. This divided by this tells me I'm about $577 per employee per year. Here are 12,051 companies that are 3 to 10,000 in size and what their average is. This is 3,402 companies in manufacturing and what they're spending. Here is 224 companies that are using Oracle to process the payroll and what they spend. So I'm not looking for this number to be lower or higher. I'm really looking to see how far off it is. And then I can go into some micro reporting like the detail. Back here, I learned I have a $577 per employee per year total cost. I can look at the detail and see what's driving that 575. So now I'm benchmarking by labor, by field labor. And I would just look at this and say, the majority of my per employee per year is manager at 345. So I'm probably pushing a lot of administrative stuff out to managers. I can tell I'm invested in technology because I'm almost half the spend of everybody else. So I would look at this and say I'm throwing people at a problem and I need tech. And it's just learning things. So the whole purpose of this total cost is really to educate the executives. Dave showed a slide that said, PwC went out and kind of evaluated things. And when companies do these type of activities, executives think about they miss about 60% of the costs. They might look at payroll and go, well, I got 3 people that make an average of 70 grand. I pay 200 grand for what I do. Therefore my total cost is somewhere in the $500,000 range. But they don't think about any of the other pieces. So this is kind of setting the stage, letting them know where the money's being spent. And then we're going to come back and structure the return on investment off of this same data structure, which is where I think, Dave, I will go now. So that's total cost. Typically, we would present this to executives once we pull it all together. The way that it's done mechanically is we can go over here and manage respondents. So I can add a respondent, put in their name, their email, allow them to see all the surveys or tell them what surveys I want. The system emails them a link, they credential themselves, and they can now go in and take the survey. If I look at the surveys, I'll just pick HR and take survey. You'll notice that the data collection tool is the same as the report. So here's, the input method where you're putting in the people, identifying the tasks, all that, and all the sections are the same as the report. The other thing to kind of understand is when data comes in through these surveys, not only do they feed our reporting hub and all of our calculations, but a calculator gets created for every corresponding pillar. So now I have the ability to go in and look at that total cost data and say, here's how that's going to be impacted by a decision I might make. If we work with you as a vendor or do things with you frequently, we have the ability to apply profiles. So ADP is a customer of ours. I'll go ahead and open this up and you can see that I can apply a Lyric profile, a managed services, a ADP workforce now, a comp services, whatever I want to apply. And what that's doing is allowing me to build that ROI with a simple mouse click. I can then go into it and make adjustments however I want. I can change percentages, go area by area and, dial it in. But you can kind of see here, maintenance, non-labor, Oracle would be sunsetted. Some of these things would be impacted. These would go away. So you kind of get the idea of how that gets built. Once it's done and that calculator is configured, the reporting hub picks up that data and we're able to produce the, let's call it the return on investment. So kind of the way this report works, it starts with that current cost and then forecasts what your new total cost would be. So in this case, they're going from 30 million down to 22 million, which gives them an opportunity to save about 7.7 million per year. Of that 7 million, we think 4.2 is direct or hard. So, mostly on the labor line here, but other things as well. But we know any CFO worth their salt is going to want to know what's direct versus indirect. We do a first year and an ongoing. They're exactly the same in this scenario, but if I had let's say I had an upgrade that I was facing in 2026 that would cost me 250 grand and I was able to avoid that by going with some other vendor, then these two would be different. So we need to account for those, but in this case, I didn't have it. So they're the same. This is the risk and opportunity. So things like error rates, overtime, all those things that we discussed at first, those aren't really related to total cost. So I look at it as icing on the cake on top of this. So then as we go through the report, table structure does the same thing. Everything's in current cost in the first year. Here's the estimated savings, whether it's hard or soft, that we anticipate. Here's the direct portion. Here's the indirect, and here's our projected first year and ongoing year's costs. Then we take the risk and opportunity by area. So you can see payroll had an error rate. We're looking at biometric clocks, which we think will, probably affect us by about 2.2% on the time loss. All these things by area You can kind of see these different risks that we've calculated. All of them have the cost, the explanation or formula, what we provided as savings percentage, and what the impact's going to be. And then this last table kind of brings it all together. So, here's the first table. Here's the financial risk coming in. If we had we anticipated any implementation cost, whether internal or by the vendor, and projected those would pick up here and net all out as well. Last part of the ROI, we do have the ability to put in other considerations. So there's a lot of things as you work through these that, you might find the reason we're not doing performance evaluations is because we don't have the software that allows us to do it. So, it doesn't really have anything to do with money, but we're picking up functionality that's going to improve our lives and make us able to do things that we haven't been able to do. So we want to be able to talk about those things as well in these ROIs. Also, we can do multiple ROI profiles. So if you look down here at the bottom, I've got one for ADP total outsourcing, one for ADP lyric, and one for traditional. These could be Dayforce, UKG, ADP. So I have the ability to look at many products and how they're going to land by one vendor, or I can compare multiple vendors and give you an apples to apples comparison report of how the ROI of each is going to impact you, if that makes sense. Okay. Now I think I'll springboard to the third part, David, if it makes sense, since we're, talking about this data and it's fresh in everybody's mind. Let's talk about analytics for a minute and what we're doing with this data that we have collected. So our partners, let's just use ADP for example. I have, 700 of their national account sales reps that work with our system, and they are able to log into our reporting hub and access what's called a benchmark comparison report. So I might go in here and say, here's my name. This is my prospect, so that I'm kind of customizing this nicely. I might come in here and say, I'm looking at an organization that's 3 to 10,000 in size. They're in the industry of, I don't know, I'll call it healthcare. I want to look at comprehensive and express studies. And, just for the sake of discussion, I'll pick payroll and HR. But I could do, all of these different areas. I'm going to say I want to apply a lyric profile to this. Maybe I'll include time as well. And we'll go ahead and put the lyric profile on that. And maybe on the payroll side, they're proposing managed services. So they're actually going to become the payroll department. And I know that this company I'm looking at is using, I don't know, we'll say Lawson for payroll. We'll say they're using Lawson for HR and maybe, UKG for time. And I want to create that report. So now, just by giving a couple of filters, and we've actually got a mobile app that's coming out that has all this data that salespeople will be able to use as well. But remember, I picked payroll, time, and HR. So I'm going to get a page for each of those when the database comes back. This is telling me for payroll, I have 16 companies in healthcare that are this size that use Lawson. And when they moved to ADP managed services, there was a overall ROI impact of, $639,000 with an additional amount of risk. So about, $1.3 million overall moving to that managed services. If I look at time and labor, there's 22 companies, total ROI of about 843,000. And if I look at HR, 6 companies with an average savings of 607 grand. As I go through these, you'll notice that it's reporting the data based on the data structure that we collect everything. So, risk and opportunity is not included in cost. The savings does not include risk here. This is just average return on investment due to the improvements. And this is annual revised total cost after the implementation. So once the implementation dollars are out and all of that, that's our post-implementation savings. I can then look into each of these areas. So this is telling me that for processing labor in this group, there's an average of 6.61 FTEs. Here are all of the activities that those groups are doing. And this is the percentage that goes away when they move to a managed services payroll. So they can actually see the work items that are going to go away or which did go away on average and how that can potentially impact them. So the idea of this data is not so much, trying to position a product. It's more having conversations on the front end, kind of priming the pump, saying, hey, here's why you should be talking to us. These are some things we can help you with. Here are some tangible advantages of all of this. One of the really cool things that comes along with this, there's a summary that gives you, across all of the three areas that we included, the total ROI. And then we actually take this report that we produce and we run it in through our AI engine and say, hey, evaluate this and create me a plain English, here's where the savings come from, what I'm going to gain from this. And it usually comes out no more than 2 pages, but it gives a little executive conclusion and some of the high level advantages and numbers. And then you can actually go over here and export this entire thing into a PDF format. And I actually like the PDF version of it a little better just because I think it's cleaner. And, as you email it and things, it's a little easier to follow when you see the appendices. They're not so much drilled down as color coded, but I'll spend a minute and show you that, and then I'll turn the time over to Chris. Okay, so here's our PDF of what we just created. It's got that, very nice executive summary. Then it's got.
You have to share your file. You're sharing your website
Oh,
right now.
I'm sorry. Let me stop and restart.
There you go.
Yeah, that'll happen when you change platforms. Okay. So there's the executive summary. It's going to bring, can you see it now, David?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the executive summary. This is the estimated savings across the 3 areas that we picked. Obviously, this is dynamic. If we'd have picked 2, there'd only be 2. If we'd have picked all 7, they'd all be here. Then it gives us, our page for payroll, HR, and time. So here's the payroll one. Here is the glossary of terms. Notice this blue header corresponds to this processing labor. We want to look at field labor, we're going to look for green. And there it is. This is the benchmark comparison for HR, same type of data structure. And this is the benchmark comparison for time and labor, same data structure. What's really cool about this is companies are running these and going, this is all the ROI I need. You're giving me averages of 8 companies that smell, taste, and look like me. I don't know that I need to go in and do this 2-hour study to figure out the detail. But what we are trying to do is give them options. So we have the ability where they can run this data, understand some things, make some decisions on it if they want to. If they want to go into the detailed study, all they got to do is, contact us. We get involved and do it. So I think I've covered most of it, Dave. Anything else that you think I need to cover quickly before I turn this over to Chris for the RFP?
No, that's everything I think that I've seen before. So it's awesome.
Any questions? I mean, should I take questions or not?
If there's any questions, people can put them in the chat.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll spit 'em
Chris,
back.
you're up.
Okay. Let's see here. Share.
I'll stop sharing.
There we go.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, Shane is by far and away a better presenter than I am. So I apologize beforehand for not being as good as he am, because it's not even close. So he's very, very well versed in demoing, and I'm just kind of a developer. So let me just throw that out there. Okay. So I have a RFP org that is basically seeded with data. It's not really, it's a synthetic org that I created with SQL statements. So it's not something that's real. So I'll go through that. There may be some places where, since it wasn't created with real data, there might be some gaps there where I don't have something that would normally appear. But then we can go to, we have a real RFP that we can look at. I didn't want to do that one because it doesn't allow us to see all the pages that would be, since that RFP is in a specific phase. Some of the other pages are blocked out, so chose to do this one first. And then we can go look at a real RFP and see kind of what that looks like. So when you look, this is what you would see if you log in for the first time. This is your dashboard. This is what shows you kind of what your current state is, what your RFP pipeline looks like, what you have, how many RFPs you have in each status. If it's, you have some in draft, active, evaluation, decision, how many have been awarded, what your attention should be focused on, just kind of your operator dashboard. This is kind of what you land in.
Hey, Chris,
What's that?
Can I interrupt for just a minute?
Please.
I think one thing to, just kind of keep in mind as Chris goes through this, you kind of have to evaluate this from the window in which you operate. So you could be working with us in this RFP system in a lot of different ways. One way is you're just out there doing an HCM project, you want to do an RFP, you wouldn't have this dashboard and all this stuff. We would help you create it. You would have the ability to communicate with your vendors, but you would not be responsible to manage all the pieces of this dashboard. You could be a procurement person who may want to buy this thing from us and use it to manage all the RFPs that you do. That might be a second use. You might be a consulting firm who, is just working with people, and they often ask you, hey, do you do RFPs, and you want to get into that line of business. This is great software to pick up and be able to seed that and get it going. We created it because we work with a lot of vendors, and we would go out and do these total cost studies, and then they would say, kind of surprise us and say, well, before we make a decision, our procurement team is going to make us look at 3 vendors and go through an RFP and all this stuff. And we saw it just delaying our projects over and over again. And so we finally went, well, wouldn't it be great if when that comes up, we could just play the card of, well, why don't you let us help you with that? We've got the system, we've got the ability to deploy it, we've got the ability to manage it. We can weight questions. I don't want to steal all Chris's thunder, but I just don't want you to get too caught up in how complicated this system is, because it is. And, based on what you're going to do, you may be experiencing that complication more or less than someone else. That's all. Don't know if that helps, but.
No, that does help. Like I said, with the RFP that we did, was with UKG, they were not ever in the dashboard. It was us that was operating it behind the scenes. So, like I said, someone could use us to use our own tool to do their RFP, or they can be a consulting firm and have access to the dashboard.
The other role I missed is you could be a vendor that just simply gets invited, like Chris's example. We did one of these where, UKG doesn't use this product, but we had a client who was doing an RFP with us. They invited UKG, Dayforce, and ADP, and those vendors just had to kind of interface with us, answer the questions, provide their data, attach documentation, but that's all they had to do. They weren't involved.
I can actually show you what that dashboard looks like. I can log in as the UKG guy.
Okay. Yeah. I won't interrupt you anymore. I'm sorry.
I'll try to go through this as quick as I can because this is actually a pretty in-depth product. There's quite a few pages, and I'll kind of just skip over some of the, just give a high arching overview of a lot of the pages. So, all right. So we have the navigation here on the left that has the dashboard, your active RFPs. If you're a logged in user that does scoring for RFPs, it will give you a my scoring page that will show you what you have to score, what's on your docket. You can create a new RFP. You have your templates, questions, vendors, requirements. And so this navigation we're looking at is kind of the outer navigation. Once I click into an RFP, you'll notice the navigation is now specific to that RFP. So let me click into one. Click into active RFPs. Click into one that is in the scoring process right now. So click into this. So you'll see that the left-hand nav now is specific to this RFP. You'll see what phase it is currently in and everything that we can do with it and configure with it. So every RFP we have is attached to some kind of workflow. So every a typical RFP might look like, you create it, you have an NDA signing, you have a questions and a question answer phase where vendors can ask questions about the questions they're given, and then an answering phase and a scoring phase and a decision phase. That's kind of a typical RFP cycle. So every RFP is attached to workflow, and you can actually customize that workflow. I'll show you here in a second. But to give you an idea of what this top part is, this is what phase of the workflow that you're in. So you click on an RFP, overview tab shows you kind of, it's like your operator cockpit of this RFP, what phase it's in, what warnings you have, things that needs to be solved. This one says there's 2 overdue vendors, stuff like that. What vendors you have. This is a synthetic one that just has 4, abstract vendors. There's no scoring yet, so it doesn't have anything here, but just kind of an overview of what this RFP does. You can export the data. You can edit it, modify the name of it, whatever. And then this is the structure. This is where you can add sections, questions. It's a lot like our TCO ROI vendor setup where you have sections and questions. In TCO, you have the processing labor, the processing non-labor, and here you can create your own sections and add your own questions to those sections. So this is kind of the RFP builder, if you will. You have a question library where you have maybe questions you use over and over again. Maybe you're a Deloitte that does, or not Deloitte, whoever, I don't know, name your RFP vendor, I don't know. But maybe you're a big RFP user and you have several different kinds of RFPs that go out to several different kinds of companies. Well, you can have a curated library of questions that you reuse over and over again. So this is kind of where that would be. You want to select a question from that library, add it to your RFP. And that's kind of it there. So logic, this is where you want to set up if else logic. So if you have a question that you want to appear, if they answer a specific question one way, you want to ask a follow-up question. You can set that up here. Score weights. So each section might be more important to you than a different section. So if for this one, data platform might be a lot more important to you than BI and visualization. I don't know, whatever your sections are, whatever that is. You can configure how much that section is worth to you. And so if you can weight that more than other sections so that when you come out on the decision end, it will help you, it will guide you and say, hey, this scored this way, and that's why this vendor is worth more than this other vendor.
Because more attention was given to the areas that are important to us, basically.
Yeah. So This is where you configure what each section is worth as far as weight is concerned. And actually, if I was on a different RFP and there was some actual answers already added, or sorry, some scores already assigned from people that have scored it, this would show you in real time how that would affect, how that would skew the results. So you can have AI suggest weights. So say you have 15 sections and you're not really sure, you can have AI say, okay, this is how I would do it. And then you can either accept or deny its suggestions. This is the workflow. So right now, this is kind of the V1 workflow builder. I have a V2 that I'm working on right now where it would be like an actual drag and drop, connect nodes and build it how you want it. But right now it's kind of a sequential card builder, workflow builder. So in this specific RFP, we're looking at a workflow where they have the setup phase, the Q&A, collection, scoring, and final decision complete phase. So each phase is configurable. You can have, in the QA phase specifically, you can have a deadline for that Q&A phase. You can have, for like collections, you can assign reviewers. So if I want to say, I want James to be this reviewer, you can add him. And so when it's time to score the RFP, that person is assigned to be the scorer. So they log in, they would see in their dashboard, they would see on the my scoring, they would have an assignment for them to go and score that RFP when the phase is in that, when the workflow is in that phase. Let's see. There's other phase types. So like you can have a discussion phase. You can make it so you want to have a discussion about, specific
Some
vendors.
vendor asks, like one we encountered is a vendor asks a question, hey, we need a little more information from your company to answer the question the right way. Can you tell us X, Y, and Z?
Well,
you look at that and go, probably the other 4 vendors need to know that too.
Yeah, that's the Q&A phase. So when that's open, you can every vendor has access to every question that's asked. So if UKG asks, hey, I need a follow-up question on this specific question, what do you mean by this? Then ADP and Workday will also see it. So it's fair. It's a fair process. We're not trying to be a biased system. We're not giving an upper hand to one vendor over the other. Everyone in the process will be able to see those questions. Cool. Let's see what else here. We got like auto filter, for example. If you add an auto filter, you can auto exclude people that have that scored lower on your sections that you scored highly on, or that you weighted highly. Maybe you want to auto exclude people that have an overall score of less than 70 or something like that. So it just kind of helps you automate the exclusion process, and that's kind of it for the workflow. It's kind of complicated and detailed, so I'll kind of avoid going too far in the weeds on that one. But suffice it to say, you have a configurable workflow where it kind of guides you through that process and allows you to configure approvers or reviewers for specific phases and due dates for those phases and things like that. Let's see, vendors. This is where you would manage your vendors. If you, maybe for the specific one, maybe they've added 4 vendors and they want to add another one. This is where you'd come and invite them. NDA signing. So we actually can integrate with DocuSign, so they can actually administer their NDA within the app. They can send, when they integrate with DocuSign or whatever document signing integration you want to use. I think we support DocuSign right now, and there's a few other ones out there as well. But you can actually integrate with DocuSign and administer the NDA right here in the app. Communication. So this is This is the admin view. Keep in mind, so if I log in as a vendor, you'll see it differently. But as a RFP admin, this is where you would communicate with your vendors. So this is the vendor Q&A tab. If the vendor asks a question, this is where you come in and answer it. And then the team notes. This is like inter-team communication. So if you have, I was trying to make it so all of your RFP related communication is within the app and not on Slack or emails or, you want all your RFP centric communication to be within this app. So that's kind of what I was going for. I'm sure people will use still Slack or email, but this gives them the opportunity to use all of their communication within the app, so you can have it all in one spot. So not looking and see where communication came from, or not trying to be stretched out to other apps. It's all right here. So that's kind of the idea. RFP team. This is where you would add, your teammates. Maybe you're working on it with 3 or 4 other people. Maybe you work in a department and someone else is in charge of another department. You add them, and you're all added to this RFP. Scoring review. This is how the scoring process would work. So you would have this is just a sample RFP. There's only 3 sections here, but in the real RFP, there would be, 15, 20 sections here. And for each section, it shows the question that you added, and you're able to score. It'll show the vendor response here. If they added any file uploads, it'll be available to download and look at here. You'll go through and give it a score. Sorry, I accidentally clicked.
You can even customize those labels, right?
I think so. Yeah.
If you don't want it to be poor, fair, or good, if you want it to be, terrible, awesome, sucky, whatever. I mean, you can put in there whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, they are.
That's all setting driven.
Yep, configurable. So a vendor scorer, someone that you assign to score RFPs. This is what they would see when they log into their dashboard and click on the scoring on their assignment. They'll come in here and they'll go through each section and give it a 1 to 5. They can also add notes so that other people can see their reasoning. And one cool thing this platform does is if you have several people scoring, say you assign 3 or 4 people to score the whole RFP, it will track whether the scores are consistent or not. So if there's someone that consistently scores questions as 1s or 2s, and someone else that's consistently scoring 4s or 5s, it will flag that and say, hey, your score alignment, this score alignment here, it will flag that and say, hey, it's probably a good idea to have a conversation about this.
Got a big variable going on here.
Yeah, some variance going on here. That's what it's designed to do. So trying to get that conversation started and make sure you guys are on the same page, or the people scoring are on the same page. And then comparison. This is like when the scores are all in, this is a page where you can come in and kind of look at the overall view of how the vendors came out side by side comparison. So it'll have, this is just a, maybe at this point I can probably go to the real RFP. I don't know. We'll see. So we'll finish this part first, and I'll go to the real RFP and show them the scoring, and then maybe if the comparison is available. Okay, so each vendor has their own score that we give them, and you can have AI evaluate each vendor, and it'll give you the pros and cons. It'll give you what it thinks about each vendor as it pertains to what's important to you. So you have the criteria comparison, score breakdown by section, and then a heat map. This actually lights up a little bit once you have a completed RFP. I think there might be one in here. Let's see if I can. There we go. This looks a little better here. So this shows you like the scores that your evaluators gave the vendors. And you can see here that Genesis, this is a synthetic org. I don't even know if that's a real company or not, but it's consistently scored very high, and 8x8's consistently scored medium or low. So it kind of gives you an overall view of color-coded view of how the comparison went down with your scoring. And then decision, this is like the decision page. It gives you the intelligence that you want to decide which vendor is good for you, and it gives you AI recommended winner, and it gives you a reason why. It gives you a comparison, final vendor rankings of where each one stands, and one of the big, I guess you call it a wedge. I learned that from AI. I use AI a lot, and it says that word a lot. So the wedge for Clearview specifically. The wedge for Clearview specifically is our TCO data, the 20,000 studies that Shane was talking about in that analytic hub we have. Well, we can, if this is an HCM RFP, which is where we're most aligned with being able to provide, since we're in that industry, we can give you a TCO score based on, if you're going to move to this platform, this is likely how that TCO is going to work out for you. Right. So in this specific case, the 5-year TCO is 4.2 million, and the TCO score, this is synthetic data, like I said, so it might not be exactly accurate, but the TCO score came out to be 91, and the RFP score came out to be 94. Getting text bombed by my son right now, so sorry about that. Second.
I was going to mention, like Chris is doing what he's doing. This is all fully integrated back to our TCO ROI tool. So if you remember during my presentation, I talked about how everything's done at a company level. And then you could see underneath there where we were doing detailed studies or express or other things. One of those tabs can be an RFP. So we could be doing detailed studies for a company and then going in with an RFP, and all of that within the overall application of the Clearview Work Suite is in the same place.
Sorry, my son was, this is his first day of school today, so he was texting me and wanted me to.
I hate this. Come and get me.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, this page is just kind of giving you the overall intelligence. This gives you an idea of the separation between top, like how far apart the top and the lower end vendors are, the variances there, if your evaluators are aligned, weight sensitivity, whether if how the outcome would be changed if you modify the weights, things like just some intelligence into the RFP and how you score it and how that would be how that would change the outcome. And what the AI recommended winner is, you can actually award the RFP. You can notify the vendors, and then one of the biggest things that I think, we can get into this later, but we actually have other software that we're developing with AI right now, and we're developing the ability to migrate and implement the platform that you're on. So if you're on ADP and you want to move to UKG or vice versa, we can actually help you migrate that data. So at this point, if you're awarding the RFP, we can actually at that point suggest to help with that implementation as well. So that's kind of the direction we're headed there. Shane, I don't know if you want to touch a little bit more on that, but
no.
Right now, it's not implemented right now, but I think that's a really good next
step
is to, when you add a checkbox here, maybe and say, initiate migration or, configure migration to new platform or whatever that is.
We might want a little link on there that you can hover over that gives them, hey, here's what we're talking about when we say request contract negotiation.
Yeah.
kind of just outlines what you just said. That would be cool if we had that note. But
Yeah. So that's, I mean, there's other things here in the base nav. That was all in the RFP specific one. But if we go back out to the base nav, there's some really cool things that you can do with AI. For example, if you there's a requirements library. So say you're a company and you don't have your question library built out yet, and you don't want to manually add every single question. Maybe you don't even know what you want to ask, but you need a new payroll provider, you need a new whatever. Well, you can add your requirements of what you need. Maybe you need a payroll provider that has SOC 2 compliance. You need a mobile app. You need whatever it is that you want them to cater to you. You can upload your document that has all those requirements, and AI will actually analyze that document and create you the questions that you need to be able to ask the vendors. So you'll upload a document, it'll analyze that, give you a list of questions, and you can either accept or deny,
or
those
modify.
Yeah, and then that will actually add that to your question library. So, and then curation as well. So you can actually, if you have several users that are using your question library, they can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, saying, "Hey, this isn't a really good question," or "I really like this question." They can actually flag it. Maybe someone added something, irrelevant or inappropriate or whatever. They can flag that, and you come in here and curate that library and delete that question, or whatever that is. Then templates you can create. Again, if you're a company that is consistently sending out RFPs, maybe you're that kind of consulting company that does RFPs. Well, you can create templates and be able to create RFPs from those templates rather than having to create them from scratch every time. Let's see. I think the only thing left is AI profiles. So an AI profile is what you configure to have AI be able to help you and understand you and offer you all the different AI related features that we've gone over. This allows you to, I think if you click in here, if you click in a new profile, let's see if I can. Continue setup. Yeah, so you're training AI, like this is our company name, this is the industry we're in, this is the company size we have, this is our company description, etc. Go through the whole phase, what things you have, what things you don't have, if you have SOC 2 compliance, if you have whatever that is, that you're basically training AI to say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we offer, this is the industry we're in. And so it kind of knows you and is able to offer you the help that you need that's catered to you. So that's pretty much it. I can show you now. I guess I can go into a vendor, like an actual vendor. Let's see, equity residential. That might be the last thing I show, is just kind of what the vendor would see when they log in. So if I go into, let's see, this guy as an admin, I can come in here and impersonate that user. So this is what he saw when he logged in. This is the vendor portal. It's very simple because vendors, I mean, they're not really going to they're not going to answer the questions most of the time in the app. Usually they have an internal process that they'll pass around an Excel file and then they'll come in and upload it into the app. So it's by design very simple. And if you're someone that gets an RFP, again, from one of those RFP consultancies, you can have an answer library just like an admin has a question library. So you can have an answer library, and the same thing with vendors. They have an AI profile. Teach the AI about you, so that all the AI features can help you in a catered way. So again, answer library. You can add a quick fact about yourself, about your company. Again, teach AI about your company. You can add an answer that maybe you're always using with the RFPs that you're getting over and over. So at some point you can probably, if you're getting, again, from one of those big consultancies, you can just go in and answer an RFP by selecting all the answers and hitting submit. You don't even need to, manually answer them anymore. So that's pretty handy. But let's see. So we have the ability to add team members, just like the AEP, not ADP, the RFP admins can. The vendor admins as well can do the same thing. They can add contributors. So here he added 2 people, and they were able to log in and see the RFP and view the answers that the team had collectively added to that RFP. So you can add, to specific sections. Maybe there's someone internally that is only on the reporting team, for example, and then so you want only that person to answer that question. So it's able to kind of divide and conquer and be able to answer the RFP collectively. Let's see. Okay, so this was their RFP. This is where a vendor would answer the RFP. So this is, if they want to manually answer the questions, this is how they would do that. He already submitted it, so he would have to request edit access in order to edit his answers. But here, if they hadn't already answered the RFP, I would be able to show you kind of the import function. If you click that import function, you can actually just upload all your answers and hit save, and it answers the whole RFP for you. So like I said, they usually have an internal process where they pass around an Excel file, fill it out, and then come into the app and just upload it, and you're done. So that's what these guys did. So if you're filling out manually, you have the ability to click on things like this. You can have an answer suggestion. Of course, AI features require a completed vendor AI profile, which they didn't do. But you can actually have AI assist you, as if you add the AI profile and teach AI about your company. That's why I require it. It can actually help you answer that question. So if you can, it'll give you a suggestion. You can accept or deny the.
So take the time up front. It might help you on the back end. Huh?
Yeah. So the Q&A process as well. This is where they would be able to ask a question. If the Q&A process is in that stage of the workflow, they'd be able to come in here and say, here's some general questions. I don't have a specific question, but ask about the RFP overall, or click a specific question and ask about that. So Q&A period is ended, so like I can't ask one. But if it was an active part of the workflow, I'd be able to come here, ask a question, and in the admin portion, that's where they'd be able to, like I showed you that part, they'd be able to answer that question there. And so as a vendor, from any of the vendors, they can see these. This is where they would also see the answers from all the other vendors as well. So I think that's pretty much it. It's not sure what else to go over.
Well, that's probably enough, Chris. If anybody has any further questions, of course, you can connect with us on the thing, on the description of wherever you're seeing this video, and we can dive deeper. But I think we have a lot to digest here, and it might be best to answer specific questions one-on-one. But I think you also sold yourself a little short. I think you demoed the product pretty good. Not as good as Shane. Shane can do a 35-minute presentation without a single mishap. So
How about that? I thought he did pretty good.
yeah, he did. I agree with that. So that's good. So thanks everybody. And if there's any Shane or Chris, do you have anything else to add? If not, we'll just wrap it up.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody.